Welcome to my equipment guide for the Necrotic set. This is an interesting set that revolves around two debuff mechanics. The first one is Doom. Doom is a debuff that is a countdown. If you've played Final Fantasy X or some other Final Fantasy games, it's just a countdown for a certain number of turns, and at the end of the countdown, it deals a fixed amount of damage that is a percentage of your maximum HP. And the second mechanic is Terror. Terror increases the damage that you or your opponent receives when there are 5 or more purple gems on the board. Now, this is a set that you cannot craft. If you go to your crafters and select Necrotic right here, as you can see, you cannot craft it. And can only be found the base set. Right now there is no variant set, only the base one, in Season 2.1, the Necrotic Tomes. Here in Season 2.1 is where you can find the full 6 pieces of the set. By the way, I love the design. The designs in general in this game are great, but especially for the weapon with the tentacles is pretty good. And the helmet, the Necrotic Visage, is pretty good as well. So let's talk about the individual pieces and the set bonuses. Set bonuses. For the two set pieces at Mythic Rarity, when matching skulls, there is a 6% chance to apply 1 stack of Doom to the enemy. Matching skulls is easy, but 6% chance is not that much for the full set, for two pieces at Mythic Rarity. For the 4 set pieces, Mythic, when dealing dark damage, there is a 10% chance to inflict terror upon the enemy for 2 turns. If you have a dark build with dark elemental damage, like a Nightblade Assassin or like a Warlock, because you're gonna use Tentacle Slap for any of the different Warlock builds. Again, it's a good idea, but only 10% chance. Yes, is every time you cast a spell that deals dark damage, so potentially you could have 4 spells that deal dark damage, but it's only a 10% chance to inflict terror. And finally, for the full set, if the enemy has terror, deal 10% extra damage. Now, terror, as I said before, increases the damage by 20%. So this will increase the damage up to 30%, if I'm not mistaken. But having to wear the full set only for an additional 10% damage, I don't think it's worth it, honestly. So let's talk about the individual pieces. Let's start with the boots. If I have Doom, gain speed. These ones are epic, but if you're using the mythical ones, it will be 50 speed. Now the problem is that how do you get Doom on yourself? It's a debuff that generally speaking you don't want, and 50 speed is not that much of a difference. There are much better boots out there. Next is the helmet. On start of battle, a chance, depending on the rarity, this one is rare, at mythical is 80%. So 80% chance to inflict terror on the enemy for 3 turns. As I said, terror will increase the damage that they take by 20% if there are 5 or more purple gems on the board. It's okay. The problem is that at maximum rarity, which is mythical, is only 80%, is not guaranteed, and the helmet slot is usually used for other better pieces of equipment. So again, okay. The weapon on dealing elemental damage, so obviously you want to use a purple necrotic tome. There is a chance in the case of mythical rarity is 50% to apply a stack of doom on the enemy. Again, if you're using a purple warlock or a purple assassin build, it's quite interesting. If you have one, two, maybe three spells that deal dark damage. But again, Doom, as I said before, is the kind of debuff that is a problem on yourself because you don't want it to trigger, but on your enemies, you generally speaking want to kill them before that timer expires. And the basic timer for Doom, if I remember correctly, is 4 turns. So it's not that good. The shield. While I have Doom, increase my block chance. Again, this one is rare. If you have the mythical one, it will increase your chance to block by 30%. Again, having to have a debuff on yourself to trigger it, I don't think it's worth it. And if you're using a Guard's Shield, you have that 30% block chance for free without having to have Doom on yourself. So, yeah. The Amulet. If the enemy has terror, increase any healing on me by a percentage. At mythical rarity is 50%. So far, this is the most interesting piece of the set. Increasing healing is quite good if you are using certain spells that I will explain a little bit later. The problem is that this is an amulet. And if you want a good amulet for healing, you have the Savior's Locket. That increases the healing boost every time you cast a spell. So it's 20% every time you cast a spell. So after 2 turns, is almost as powerful as the Necrotic Sign. After 3 turns, is better. So, okay. Also, this one, I believe it only affects HP healing. I could be wrong about that. I haven't tested it thoroughly, but I'm not sure if it works also for armor and resistance. But even if it does, as I said, the Savior's Locket in 3 turns will be more powerful. And last, the Necrotic Binding. On the start of your turn, gain mana. This one is only rare, but if you have the mythical one, if the enemy has terror, gain 4 to all mana. Now, all mana is interesting because it's not only for your 4 regular spells, but also for your ultimate one. But it's 4 mana. You could equip 2 of these rings for 8 mana, but yeah, again, I don't know how good that is in the big scheme of things. So let's talk about what I said before about spells. Again, I'm not sure about the effects of the amulet, but if it also affects your armor and resistance, you can use it with from the shadows, for example, if you're playing an assassin. And if it does work, it will increase your armor and resistance gain with this spell, which is very good. I mean, 50% more armor and resistance gain. As I said, if it works for armor and resistance, not only for HP, it would be pretty good. And also, I wanted to talk about this assassin exclusive spell, which is an Iron Strike. Deal dark damage, and if if the enemy is suffering from terror, create purple gems. So this spell synergizes very well with the set. Now, if we go to Season 2.1 again, you will see that there are other pieces of equipment that and spells that also synergize well with this set, such as the Eldritch Wrap, which are the leg slot for the Eldritch God set, which is the unique set from Season 2. And with this leg piece, on dealing physical damage, there is a 40% chance to apply a stack of doom on the enemy. So, as you can see, it works well with the set. And regarding the spells, we have Creeping Terror, deal dark damage, and apply terror on the opponent. If the enemy already has terror, it reduces their power. So, as you can see, increasing the rarity will increase the duration, but that's it. Well, obviously also the damage because it increases the mastery, but the effect is what it is. And as you can see, characters inflicted with terror take 20% more damage if there are 5 or more purple gems on the board. Remember that the Kingdom Dragon and the Living Statue are immune to debuffs, so you cannot inflict terror on them or any other type of debuff. But any other opponent, both in PvE and in PvP, can be terrorized. We have Burning Anguish, which is fire element, deal fire damage, and apply terror. If the enemy already has terror, deal half the damage again. We have Paralyzing Fear, which is blue or ice, deal ice damage, and apply terror for 5 turns. Again, this duration is what changes depending on the rarity. These are the levels of my spells. If the enemy already has terror, inflict freeze. And we have Suffocating Presence, deal poison damage, because it's a poison or green spell, apply terror, and if the enemy already has terror, drain half their mana. So as you can see, there are 4 spells for 4 different colors, all but yellow, that can inflict terror and have additional properties if the enemy is already terrorized. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is about similar effects from other colors. Because terror, you don't have to play purple, you can play another color, but obviously, if you're playing another color, you need to be careful that there are at least 5 purple gems on the board. Otherwise, it's completely useless to use terror. Oh, before I do that, before I talk about other elements, there are 2 other pieces of equipment that synergize with terror. The first one is the Bone Mask. There is a 60% chance to cause terror on an enemy for 4 turns when matching skulls. Personally, I think it's better than the Necrotic Visage because this one is just 80% chance, and that's it. If it fails, it fails. With this one, it's 60% chance every time you match skulls. And the second item is the Crown of the Fallen, which belongs to the unique set Ancient Dragon. This is the set from Season 3. And this one increases the effect of terror by plus 25%. Again, I'm not sure, I haven't tested it, so I don't know if it's 25% on top of the regular 20%. So 20 plus 25 of 20, it will be 25, or 20 plus 25 for a total of 45. and potentially if you're wearing the full set for a total of 35, excuse me, 55. I'm not sure about that because, as I said, I haven't tested it enough. But um, keep in mind, if you want to use terror, that you can also use these other two pieces of equipment. It's just too bad that all three are a helmet, so you cannot wear all three synergizing with each other. Instead, you have to choose one of them. But finally, what I wanted to talk about is other colors and how the additional damage works. For example, if you're playing green, poison will, and there are many different ways to inflict poison on your opponent, but probably the easiest one is the Serpentine Pauldrons. There is an 80% chance to inflict poison for 4 turns when taking damage. If your opponent is poisoned, it will receive an additional 25% damage. That's it. You don't need any piece of equipment. That 25% is free. And on top of that, if the opponent is withered, as for example, if you're using 2 pieces of equipment from the Dreamhold set, no, I don't want the shoulders. Okay, for example, the cuirass and the, let me put the other ring. Oh, no, let's get, well, no, I don't want to use the gauntlets because I want to put another example. Okay, so with 2 pieces of equipment, it will wither the enemy when you match 5 or more green gems, transforming that 25% additional damage from poison into 50%. If you're playing yellow or dark, is possible also to inflict blind with the darkness spell, which is this one. You can blind the enemy. The chance is not very high, but it's 25% plus your spell book, so it caps at 75%. But if the opponent is blinded, which is more common for a yellow build, and you're wearing the jewel gauntlets, you will deal 30% bonus damage with these gauntlets equipped. As I said, the jewel set is more for a yellow build, and blind is very common in yellow builds. You have tons of different pieces of equipment and spells that can blind. So this is another elemental property here. And if you're playing blue and are wearing the Bloodfang gloves, deal 30% bonus damage to frozen enemies. As you can see, these 2 gloves are pretty much the same, one for frozen and one for blinded. So each color has a way to boost the damage if the opponent is suffering from a specific debuff. In the case of red, it's, well, the burn effect from the Warlock's ultimate, which are the Imp gems. But as you can see, there are multiple ways to increase the damage you deal to opponents. And in the case of purple, terror is an interesting mechanic, but in my opinion, the 20% is not that good. So yeah, I can see some good synergies with this set, some of the pieces of the set, and an assassin, especially if the bonus from the amulet works with the from the shadows to increase your armor resistance gain, and the synergy with the unnerving strike spell, which is a very good spell if the enemy is terrorized because it doubles down as damage dealer and purple gem generator. This is excellent. But aside from that, I don't see that much use for the set. It's interesting, but that's it. It's just interesting. And that is my video about the Necrotic set. If you like it, please like, comment, subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.